she once bragged in front of her friends, laughing so loud the whole dorm could hear. I hooked up with 3 guys on spring break. They all gasped, cheered, and treated her like she was some kind of legend. I just looked at her and said, "Cool story." Little did she know that smug confidence wouldn't last. Weeks later, she sat in the bathroom, holding a pregnancy test, with trembling hands. The 2 pink lines stared back at her, mocking everything she thought she had under control. And when she called each guy, none of them even answered. Before I continue the story, don't forget to subscribe for more unbelievable true stories like this one. Then, I remember the day she barged into my room. Her face was pale, her hands shaking, and she looked nothing like the girl who had strutted around bragging to anyone who would listen. She whispered, "I think I'm pregnant." At first, I thought she was joking, another one of her dramatic confessions, meant to stir attention. But when she pulled the test from her pocket, and I saw those pink lines, I knew this wasn't a game. I asked her calmly, "Do you know whose it is?" She looked down at the floor, her lips trembling. Her silence said it all. She didn't know. 3 guys in 1 week, and not a single one of them cared enough to even answer her call. She dialed the first number again, straight to voicemail. The second guy blocked her. The third laughed when she mentioned the test and said, "Not my problem, sweetheart." That was the moment her confidence shattered. The girl who had mocked me for being boring and responsible was suddenly drowning in the consequences of her own choices. The next weeks were chaos. She cried herself to sleep every night. Her friends who once cheered her on started distancing themselves. No one wanted to be associated with the scandal. College rumors spread like wildfire. People whispered when she walked past. I could see the shame eat her alive. One night, she said, "I don't think I can do this. I don't want to face everyone." I told her, "Running won't erase it. You have to take responsibility now." And for the first time, she didn't snap back with sarcasm. She just nodded, tears streaming down her face. She tried calling her mom, but couldn't bring herself to explain everything. So eventually, I called her family. Her mother's voice cracked when she heard the news. Within days, they showed up, not with anger, but with an exhausted kind of disappointment. I saw her father's eyes, the kind of eyes that said, "Where did I go wrong?" They took her home. Weeks later, I got a call from her. She said, "I'm keeping the baby. I don't know if I'm strong enough, but I have to try." There was no more pride in her voice, just raw honesty. Months passed, and I visited once. She looked tired, older somehow, but there was something different in her too. She held her small belly, protective, almost tender. She said, "Do you think people will forgive me?" I looked at her and replied, "It's not about them forgiving you. It's about you forgiving yourself." She's still struggling, raising her child alone, but she's not the same reckless girl anymore. Life humbled her in the hardest way possible. Sometimes I think back to that night in the dorm when she laughed about her so-called conquests. I bet if she could go back, she'd trade every one of those moments for the peace she craves now. Her story became a cautionary tale for others around us. Some mocked her, some pitied her, but I saw something else: growth. Painful, unwanted, but real growth. She went from careless pride to the rawest kind of responsibility. And whenever I think of her, I realize life has a way of teaching lessons no one forgets. Life has a way of teaching lessons no one forgets. At first, she tried to ignore the whispers, the judgmental stares. and the way old friends started avoiding her in the cafeteria. But shame has a way of finding you, even when you're trying to pretend you don't care. I'd watch her walk across campus, head down, backpack straps gripped tightly, like she was holding onto something solid, when everything else in her life was falling apart. One afternoon, I found her sitting alone on a bench behind the library. She wasn't the loud, confident girl everyone used to notice. She was just small, her hands rubbed over her belly absent-mindedly, as though she was already a mother protecting her child. I sat down beside her without saying anything. After a long silence, she whispered, "Do you think people will always see me this way? Like the girl who messed up?" I told her, "People forget scandals quicker than you think, but your choices and how you handle them, that's what stays." Her eyes filled with tears. She said, "I thought I was in control. I thought I was free, powerful. But it turns out I was just being used. And now I'm the only one paying the price." I stayed quiet, letting her speak, because it was the first time she had admitted out loud what I think she'd known all along. When her parents came to take her home, it wasn't easy. Her mom hugged her, but cried the whole time. Her dad barely said a word, his silence heavier than any lecture. The drive back to their town must have been suffocating. Weeks later, she told me her father didn't even look at her for days. Every time she walked into the room, he'd find an excuse to leave. That hurt her more than any insult from her classmates. But it was her mother who finally broke through. One night, when she was sobbing on her bed, her mom sat beside her and said, "Mistakes don't define you, but how you take responsibility does. You are still my daughter. This child is still my grandchild. We will walk this road together." That conversation lit something in her. She started making plans. She dropped out of school for the semester, got a part-time job at a local diner, and began saving every penny she could. She knew the baby's father wouldn't be there, and she didn't even bother chasing after them anymore. The denial, the laughter, the hang-ups, she realized chasing them was humiliating, so she stopped. But the world didn't stop judging. Her old college friends posted selfies, tagging each other with captions about freedom and fun, deliberately leaving her out. One of them even wrote, "Some of us know how to keep spring break fun without ruining our lives." She showed me the post through tears, her hand trembling with both rage and heartbreak. It was cruel, but it was also a reminder she was walking a different road now. Her pregnancy was hard. She was sick most mornings, exhausted most nights. Her back ached, her ankles swelled, and yet she went to work every day because she refused to depend on her parents for everything. She waited tables, her growing belly earning both sympathetic smiles and judgmental stares. Sometimes people tipped her generously. Other times they muttered under their breath about girls who couldn't keep their legs closed. She learned to swallow the comments and keep moving. And then came the baby shower. At first, she didn't want one. She felt she didn't deserve to celebrate, that people would only judge her more. But her mom insisted. Family gathered, neighbors brought gifts, and for the first time in months, she felt surrounded by love. Still, there was a shadow that wouldn't leave. She admitted to me in a late-night call, "Sometimes I wonder if this baby will hate me one day for the choices I made. What if they grow up and ask me who their father is? What will I say?" I told her, "You'll tell them the truth when they're old enough, and you'll show them that even if you made mistakes, you never abandoned them. That matters more than blood." The baby was born in the fall. A little girl. Tiny, fragile, with a loud cry that filled the hospital room. She held her daughter with shaky hands, tears streaming down her face. She whispered, "I'm so sorry, but I promise I'll be better for you." That moment changed her. I could hear it in her voice whenever she called. The exhaustion was still there, the stress of bills, the long nights, but there was a strength in her now. She worked harder than ever, balancing her job and motherhood, often on very little sleep. Her parents helped, but she refused to let them carry her burden entirely. A year later, she told me something that stuck with me. She said, "You know, if those guys had stepped up, maybe I'd still be stuck in the same reckless cycle. But their absence forced me to grow up. Their silence saved me from myself." And I realized she was right. Sometimes the people who abandon us are unknowingly giving us the chance to become stronger than we ever imagined. Her daughter is 2 now. She still struggles, still faces whispers when she walks into certain places. But she doesn't care as much anymore. Her pride isn't in what people think of her. It's in the little girl who calls her mama. And when I think back to that night in the dorm, when she boasted about hooking up with 3 guys like it was a trophy, I see the irony. What she thought made her powerful actually left her powerless. But what she thought would destroy her, this child, turned out to be her greatest source of strength. Life doesn't hand out easy lessons. It hands out the kind that leave scars. But scars don't mean the end. They mean survival. And she is surviving, one day at a time, carrying the weight of her past, but no longer letting it crush her. Because sometimes the hardest lessons really are the ones no one forgets. If you felt this story and want to hear more emotional true stories, don't forget to subscribe.